How you doing, everybody? I'm 30's man, and this is the last week we're gonna have to be hanging out in this dingy rat hole of a basement that Mick Swigger kid calls a home. I swear, my last apartment was nicer looking than this. So I hate to inform most of you, but some of us just left early because they couldn't stand hanging around here anymore. That hillbilly-looking guy, Toby, he left. And then that vegetarian kid who was always going on about animals or whatever, he left too. Not that I'm surprised. I mean, they were a couple of lightweights anyway. I'll tell you what, those two probably wouldn't have lasted through the kind of stuff that my generation went through. I'll tell you that. Anyway, we're going to try and go back to regular video format for the Sidekicks, where we're talking about a bunch of different things and subjects that you recommended us. And one that was lobbied my way was people wanted me to talk about something very special to my generation, that being the Three Stooges. I'll tell you what, I loved the Three Stooges shorts back in the day. I would always go to the theater every time they had a new picture coming out. I absolutely loved the kind of stuff that those guys did. Those three were absolute comedic geniuses, I'll tell you. Off the bat, I wanted to smack this movie upside the head because I noticed that the opening logo was 20th Century Fox. And if you watched Three Stooges as much as I did, you would know for a fact that those movies were made by Columbia Pictures. So when 20th Century Fox's logo came up, I was like, you friggin' chatterheads, you mooks, you're doing it wrong. The movie proper starts at this orphanage where we see that the Three Stooges, as babies, are dropped off, and they're taken care of by the nuns that work at this establishment. A little bit weird when you think about it. I mean, the Stooges in real life were Jewish, but in this movie, they're supposed to be raised by Catholic nuns in this orphanage. Huh. Wonder what Kathy O'Lick thinks about this. Oh, Larry and Curly then spend the rest of their adult years living at the orphanage, helping around, getting into more shenanigans. The main plot begins when it turns out that the orphanage is about to be shut down because of a lack of funding. And so what the Stooges have to do is they have to go to the big city and they have to try and get funding. Along the way, they end up getting swept up in this moita plot as this broad and her boyfriend are trying to axe off her rich husband, who it later turns out is actually a grown-up version of Teddy. And while all that's going on, they then get wrapped up in a bunch of other little shenanigans along the way. There's a part where they end up in a hospital, and they have a Western-style shootout with urinating babies. That part happens. End up falling off a building, and again, just like the original shorts, there's a part where they're falling and they're obviously dummies. And the fact that in 2012 they actually felt the need to go back and use those kind of old school effects for a Three Stooges film is dedication to craft and respect to the original shorts. And we get one of those scenes where there's a lack of communication between the characters, and Larry and Curly end up leaving Moe, and Moe ends up getting picked up by producers of some show from around that time called The Jersey Shore. I never saw this show when it was on, but I can only gather from this movie that it's a show about a bunch of degenerate grandsons and granddaughters of ex-mafia types who are just running around the beach acting like a bunch of mooks. And Moe is dropped into the center of them, and he slaps them up really good. Then they decide to go get Moe, and Moe is more than happy to go back to them as they then leave the show, and they then are off to try and stop this moita plot that's been going on all throughout the movie. Go to try and help Teddy before this moita plot can get going, and they do the routine of they get mistaken for caterers, and they end up fumbling with a bunch of food and stuff like that. And go to Teddy to try and tell him about his wife and her boyfriend are trying to rub him out, but apparently she also backstabs the boyfriend as she's now working with Teddy's father, all held at gunpoint while in a car to try and take them out, to rub them out somewhere far away. But Curly's pet rat, Nippy, ends up getting loose, and they end up driving the car into the water, and then the police come and take the crooks away. Then Teddy gets cold feet and tells them he's not going to give them the money, since the money's going to be going to the same orphanage that gave him away to some billionaire monster who was more than ready to rub him out. So unfortunately, the orphanage is then shut down, but it's okay because there's an orphanage built next door that has a swimming pool and a bunch of other great things, and it's all being paid off by the producers of The Jersey Shore, saying that they're going to do a new reality TV show, whatever that is, where it's gonna be nuns versus nincompoops, or nuns versus nitwits, or something like that. The movie even ends with one of those old school bits where they end up on horses and they run off into the sunset in fast motion. And there's this weird scene where there's these two guys, I don't even know who they are, apparently they're the directors or whatever. They come out and say something about how, you know, oh, all the stuff you saw in this film was just comedic effect, and we put sound effects over people getting slapped around. You don't want to do that. Overall, while I don't think this is as great as some of the original shorts because those are just timeless classics, I think that this was an overall enjoyable little film. It's one of those things where you put something from the past and then you put it into modern times, and apparently a lot of people are really sick of that. But me personally, I thought it was alright. It wasn't anything great, but I was entertained all throughout, mainly because of the performances and all the little callbacks and all the little loving homages to the original shorts. It seemed like this was a passion project. It seemed like this was something made by people who really knew a lot about the Stooges and wanted to make something replicating them. Anyway, everybody, I'm 30's Man, and this has been an episode of the Sidekicks. Look forward to future videos where we're going to be doing stuff like this. We're going to be sitting down and talking about, the talking pictures and talking about, those video games or whatever you kids are calling it. We're going to talk about stuff like that. So look forward to some more videos of us doing stuff like that in the future. Until then, I'm 30's Man, and thank you all for watching.